They didn't know this was the last time they would ever disrespect you. Let that sink in for a moment, not because you were planning revenge, not because you finally decided to argue louder than they did. No, it was the last time because something inside you changed forever. There comes a moment in every strong person's life when the constant disrespect, the constant betrayal, the constant underestimation no longer hurts. It awakens them. Some people think they can keep crossing your boundaries because you've stayed quiet for so long. They mistake your patience for weakness. They mistake your kindness for permission. They mistake your silence for fear. But what they fail to realize is that quiet people don't stay quiet forever. There comes a day when your peace becomes more valuable than proving yourself to anyone. There comes a day when you stop explaining, stop chasing, stop begging for respect, and simply walk away. That day is the most dangerous day for anyone who ever underestimated you, because once you stop needing validation, you become unstoppable. Look around you. Haven't you noticed how people often laugh at those who are building in silence? They criticize dreams they don't understand. They mock discipline because it exposes their own lack of it. They disrespect your boundaries because they've become comfortable benefiting from your generosity. But here's the truth. They only had access to the old version of you. They never prepared themselves for the person you were becoming behind closed doors. Every insult became fuel. Every rejection became motivation. Every betrayal taught you another lesson. While they were busy talking about you, life was training you. While they were laughing at your struggles, God was strengthening your character. They thought they were watching someone fall apart, but in reality, they were witnessing someone being rebuilt into a force they could never control again. You see, disrespect only works when you accept it. The moment you recognize your worth, everything changes. Suddenly, the opinions that once kept you awake at night lose their power. Suddenly, the people who ignored you begin noticing your absence. Suddenly, those who treated you like an option start wondering why they no longer have access to you. Isn't it amazing how your value becomes visible only after people lose it? That's human nature. Many don't appreciate light until they're standing in darkness. Many don't appreciate loyalty until they're surrounded by fake people. Many don't appreciate your presence until your silence fills every room they enter. And when that realization finally hits them, it's already too late. Let me tell you something that can completely transform your life. Your greatest response to disrespect is not anger, it's growth. Anyone can react, anyone can yell, anyone can seek revenge, but not everyone can become so successful, so peaceful, so confident that the disrespect loses all meaning. That's real power. Imagine becoming so focused on your purpose that the people trying to distract you no longer matter. Imagine reaching a place where your happiness isn't connected to anyone's approval. Imagine standing so firmly in your identity that criticism sounds like background noise. That's the level God wants you to reach. Not a life controlled by bitterness, but a life driven by purpose. Some people will never apologize. Let's accept that today. Some people will never admit they were wrong. Some people will rewrite history just to protect their pride. Don't wait for closure from people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Your peace cannot depend on someone else's apology. Your healing cannot depend on someone else's guilt. Your future cannot be chained to someone else's opinion. Freedom begins the moment you stop expecting fairness from unfair people. That's when you become impossible to manipulate. That's when your confidence becomes untouchable. Here's what many people don't understand. Every season of disrespect has an expiration date. It doesn't last forever. There comes a moment when those who laughed begin watching. Those who ignored begin following. Those who rejected begin regretting. Not because you became someone different overnight, but because consistency always reveals the truth. Success has a strange way of exposing every lie people believed about you. Results silence arguments that words never could. And while others are busy explaining themselves, you'll simply be living proof that they were wrong. Never allow temporary treatment to define your permanent identity. Just because someone failed to recognize your value doesn't mean you don't have value. Diamonds remain diamonds even when buried under dirt. Eagles remain eagles even when surrounded by crows. Your identity isn't determined by the hands that mishandled you. It's determined by the Creator who designed you. So stop shrinking yourself to fit into places you've already outgrown. Stop begging for seats at tables where your presence isn't respected. Sometimes, God removes you from certain rooms because He's preparing a greater platform where your gifts won't just be tolerated, they'll be celebrated. The people who disrespected you thought they understood your limits. They thought they knew how much you could endure. They believed you'd always come back. They believed you'd always forgive without change. They believed you'd always be available, no matter how they treated you. But they forgot one important truth. Growth changes people. Healing changes people. Purpose changes people. The person they once controlled no longer exists. The version of you that tolerated constant disrespect has been left behind. Today you walk differently. Today you think differently. Today you choose differently. And here's the beautiful part. You don't need to announce your transformation. You don't need long speeches explaining why you've changed. Let your actions speak. Let your peace speak. Let your discipline speak. Let your success speak. Let your absence speak. The loudest statement you'll ever make is becoming someone who no longer needs to prove anything. Nothing frustrates your critics more than watching you succeed without their permission. So if you're listening today, I want you to remember this whenever someone tries to make you feel small. Their disrespect is not your destiny. Their opinion is not your identity. Their rejection is not your future. The last time they disrespected you wasn't marked by an argument. It was marked by a decision inside your heart. A decision that you would never again settle for less than the respect you deserve. A decision that your peace is priceless. A decision that your purpose is greater than your pain. A decision that your future is brighter than your past. One day, they'll look back and realize they lost access to someone rare. They'll wonder why you never came back. They'll wonder why their words stopped affecting you. They'll wonder how you became so strong, and the answer will be simple. They didn't know it at the time, but the last moment they disrespected you was the exact moment you decided to rise. From that day forward, you stopped fighting to be understood and started living to fulfill your purpose. You stopped chasing respect and started becoming someone whose presence naturally commands it. And once that transformation begins, there is no going back. Your story changes, your confidence grows, your faith becomes stronger, and your future becomes brighter. So stand tall, protect your peace, trust God's timing, and keep moving forward. Because the greatest chapter of your life always begins after the last time someone underestimates who you were created to become. There is a moment in life that almost nobody sees when it happens. It doesn't come with loud music or dramatic announcements. It doesn't arrive with revenge, arguments, or public confrontations. It happens quietly, deep inside your heart. It's the moment you stop asking, "Why don't they respect me?" and start saying, "I no longer need the approval of people who refuse to see my worth." That is the moment everything changes, and I believe some of you listening today are standing right at that moment. You've spent too much of your life trying to earn respect from people who had already decided they would never give it to you. You explained yourself over and over again. You defended your character. You proved your loyalty. You sacrificed your peace just to keep relationships alive. But no matter how much you gave, it was never enough. Have you ever experienced that? Have you ever poured your heart into people only to be treated like you were invisible? Have you ever stayed loyal while others kept taking advantage of your kindness? If you have, then hear this with all your heart. Your value was never determined by their ability to recognize it. The greatest mistake many people make is believing that respect can be forced. They think if they work harder, become kinder, explain themselves better, or remain available all the time, people will eventually appreciate them. But the truth is, Some people benefit from keeping you small. Some people are comfortable only when you doubt yourself. They enjoy being the center of your attention because it gives them control. As long as you keep chasing their approval, they hold the power. Every compliment they give becomes valuable. Every criticism they speak becomes painful. Every moment they ignore you feels like rejection. Why? Because you've unknowingly handed them the authority to decide how you feel about yourself. But one day, something shifts. Maybe it happens after another betrayal. Maybe it comes after another sleepless night filled with disappointment. Maybe it arrives after you've cried so many tears that there are none left to cry. Whatever the reason, something inside you wakes up. You begin asking yourself a different question. Instead of asking, "Why don't they appreciate me?" you begin asking, "Why am I begging for appreciation from people who have repeatedly shown me who they are?" That question becomes the beginning of freedom, because once you ask it honestly, you can never return to the person you used to be. You realize that your kindness was never supposed to become your weakness. Your patience was never meant to become permission for others to disrespect you. Your forgiveness was never meant to invite repeated betrayal. There is a difference between having a loving heart and allowing people to misuse it. God calls us to love others, but He never calls us to abandon our self-respect. Loving people does not mean allowing them to constantly wound your spirit. Being humble does not mean accepting humiliation. Being forgiving does not mean removing every boundary. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is quietly step away from people who repeatedly choose to dishonor you. Think about it for a moment. Why were you working so hard to convince people of something that God had already declared? Before anyone spoke your name, God knew your purpose. Before anyone judged your potential, God had already placed gifts inside you. Before anyone underestimated your future, God had already written chapters of your life that no human opinion could erase. Isn't it amazing how we often forget God's opinion while becoming obsessed with everyone else's? We spend years trying to impress people who didn't create us, while ignoring the one who did. But the day you remember whose approval truly matters is the day you stop living as a prisoner of public opinion. Some people listening today are emotionally exhausted, not because life has been difficult, but because you've been carrying the impossible burden of making everyone happy. You've tried to avoid conflict. You've tried to please family members who are never satisfied. You've tried to keep friendships alive, even when the effort came only from your side. You've tried to remain loyal to people who only called when they needed something. And every time you gave another chance, they took another piece of your peace. But today I want to remind you of something powerful. You cannot heal while constantly returning to the place that keeps breaking you. At some point, choosing yourself is not selfish, it is necessary. The people who kept disrespecting you believed something that turned out to be completely false. They believed you would always stay the same. They believed your silence meant weakness. They believed your compassion meant endless tolerance. They believed you would always answer the phone, always forgive without change, always accept less than you deserved. They became so comfortable with your availability that they never imagined life without your presence. But they forgot something important. Growth changes people. Healing changes people. Faith changes people. The person they manipulated yesterday may not exist tomorrow. The version of you that accepted constant disrespect was only temporary. God was using every painful experience to build someone stronger. Here's what many people fail to understand about healing. Healing doesn't always make you softer. Sometimes healing makes you wiser. It teaches you when to say no without guilt. It teaches you that protecting your peace is not pride, it is wisdom. It teaches you that not every battle deserves your attention. There comes a season when you simply stop explaining yourself, not because you have nothing to say, but because you've realized that some people are committed to misunderstanding you. No amount of explanation can change a heart that has already chosen judgment. So instead of wasting your energy defending yourself, you begin investing that energy into becoming the person God created you to be. Imagine how confusing that must be for the people who once controlled your emotions. They expected another argument, but you chose silence. They expected another apology, but you chose dignity. They expected another opportunity to disrespect you, but this time you simply walked away, not out of hatred, not out of revenge, but because your peace had become too valuable to sacrifice anymore. That is real strength. Real strength is not shouting louder than your enemies. Real strength is refusing to let them steal your joy another day. And isn't it incredible how people suddenly notice your worth only after you've stopped chasing them? The calls become more frequent, the messages become more emotional, the curiosity grows stronger. Why? Because people often take consistent kindness for granted until it's no longer available. They confuse loyalty with permanence. They assume you'll always remain where they've left you. But once you've truly healed, you stop returning to places where your spirit was constantly wounded. You stop asking for respect and start living in a way that naturally commands it. So if you're listening to me today, I want you to make a decision that could change the rest of your life. Stop measuring your value by the opinions of people who have repeatedly failed to recognize it. Stop shrinking yourself to fit into relationships that have become too small for your purpose. Stop believing that you must earn the respect that should have been given freely. Walk with confidence, not because everyone believes in you, but because God does. Let your peace become louder than your pain. Let your faith become stronger than their criticism. And remember this every single day. The last time they disrespected you became the turning point of your life, because it was the day you finally stopped seeking validation from people and started embracing the identity God had already given you. From that moment forward, no insult could define you, no rejection could stop you, and no opinion could limit the incredible future waiting ahead of you. There is something powerful that happens when you stop focusing on getting even and start focusing on getting better. Most people expect you to fight back the way they fought you. They expect you to return insult for insult, betrayal for betrayal, and pain for pain. They think that if they hurt you, you will spend the rest of your life trying to hurt them back. But what they never expect is your silence. They never expect your discipline. They never expect your growth, and they certainly never expect you to rise so high that one day they have no choice but to watch from a distance. That is the kind of victory no argument can ever produce. Your greatest comeback is not proving them wrong with your words, it is proving them wrong with your life. Think about the people who underestimated you. They looked at your current situation and assumed it was your final destination. They judged your future based on your present struggles. They saw your tears but couldn't see your strength. They saw your setbacks but couldn't see the lessons hidden inside them. They saw your failures but never imagined those failures were preparing you for something greater. They laughed because they believed your story was over. But what they didn't understand is that God often does his greatest work behind the scenes. While people are busy judging what they can see, heaven is preparing what they cannot see. Have you ever noticed how a seed looks lifeless before it becomes a tree? If someone judged the seed by its appearance, they would never believe it could one day provide shade, fruit, and shelter. But growth always begins where nobody is looking. The same is true for your life. While others were mocking your silence, you were developing wisdom. While they were enjoying temporary victories, you were building permanent character. While they were obsessed with appearances, God was transforming your heart. They thought they were winning because they couldn't see what was happening inside you. But the greatest transformations are invisible long before they become undeniable. Many people think revenge brings satisfaction, but it rarely does. Revenge keeps you emotionally connected to the very people who wounded you. Every moment you spend planning how to prove them wrong is another moment they continue occupying your mind. They may not even know you're thinking about them, yet they continue stealing your peace. Isn't that exactly what they wanted? They wanted your attention. They wanted your reaction. They wanted to know they still had power over your emotions. But everything changes when you decide that your future deserves more attention than your past. Instead of investing your energy into bitterness, you invest it into becoming stronger, wiser, healthier, and closer to God. That decision changes everything.
Imagine waking up every morning no longer asking, how can I make them regret what they did? Instead, you ask, how can I become the best version of myself today? Do you see the difference? One question keeps you trapped in yesterday, the other leads you toward tomorrow. One feeds anger, the other feeds purpose. One keeps your eyes on people, the other keeps your eyes on the life God is calling you to build. The direction of your focus determines the direction of your future. If you constantly look backward, you will never fully step into what lies ahead. The people who disrespected you expected you to remain broken. They assumed the pain they caused would define your identity forever. They believed your confidence would never recover. They thought every cruel word they spoke would echo in your mind for the rest of your life. But they underestimated one thing: the power of a person who refuses to quit. They underestimated what happens when someone places their pain into God's hands instead of allowing it to become poison in their heart. They underestimated the strength that comes from choosing faith over fear, hope over despair, and purpose over bitterness. You have to understand something today. Every challenge you survived was preparing you for a level of strength that comfort could never produce. Easy seasons don't create resilient people. Difficult seasons do. The nights you cried taught you compassion. The betrayals taught you discernment. The rejection taught you independence. The loneliness taught you how to hear God's voice more clearly. Looking back, you may realize that the very experiences you once begged God to remove became the experiences He used to shape your destiny. If those painful moments hadn't happened, perhaps you would never have discovered how strong you truly were. There comes a time when your success no longer needs an announcement. People begin noticing the difference without you saying a word. They see your peace. They notice your confidence. They recognize that you no longer react the way you used to. They realize that the person they once manipulated has become emotionally mature and spiritually grounded. This is what confuses people the most. They expected you to stay wounded, but instead you became wiser. They expected your heart to harden, but instead your faith became stronger. They expected you to become bitter, but instead you became better. And isn't that the most beautiful form of victory? Not because you defeated someone else, but because you refused to let someone else defeat you. There is a huge difference. Anyone can celebrate another person's downfall, but true champions celebrate their own growth. Your goal was never to destroy the people who hurt you. Your goal was to refuse to let their actions destroy the person God created you to be. That's why healing is one of the greatest acts of courage. It means you refuse to carry hatred into the next chapter of your life. It means you trust God to handle justice while you focus on your purpose. One day, some of those same people may look at your life with regret. They may wonder how you became so confident. They may ask how you managed to move forward after everything they put you through. They may even try to reconnect once they realize your value. But by then, you won't be driven by resentment or pride. You'll simply be standing in a place they never imagined you could reach. Not because you wanted to prove them wrong, but because you stayed faithful to the process while they were distracted by judging you. Remember this: eagles never waste their strength arguing with crows. They simply fly to heights the crows cannot reach. In the same way, your purpose is not to spend your life fighting every critic or answering every insult. Your purpose is to rise. Rise in wisdom, rise in faith, rise in character, rise in discipline, rise in peace. The higher you grow, the smaller yesterday's insults become. What once kept you awake at night eventually becomes a distant memory because your future becomes too exciting to remain trapped in your past. So I want to leave you with this truth. The greatest revenge has never been revenge at all. It has always been transformation. It is waking up every day with peace in your heart instead of anger. It is smiling because your identity is no longer tied to the opinions of people who never appreciated you. It is building a life so filled with purpose that there is no room left for bitterness. It is becoming someone who inspires others through resilience
instead of reacting through pain. Let them remember the version of you they underestimated, because they will never meet that person again. The one standing before them now has been refined by every trial, strengthened by every disappointment, and guided by the hand of God. And once you become that person, no disrespect can pull you backward. No criticism can shake your confidence, and no enemy can stop the incredible future that God has already prepared for your life. That is your victory. That is your comeback. And that is the moment they realize they didn't lose an argument. They lost access to someone they never truly deserved.